Okay, geometry people. We are doing section 12 point, I don't know, 7, page 847, and we're going to talk about circles, which I know is shocking because we haven't done circles this whole chapter. But this one will be really short for me to explain, so hopefully a pretty short video, and you can be off to the races on your circles. Okay, here we go. 12.7, 847. This is about graphing circles. When you're graphing circles, there's an equation that looks a lot like this. Don't be scared. I know it's a lot of letters and it's a little crazy, but you'll be totally fine. I've got you. Okay? So, R is the radius of the circle. H is the X from the ordered pair. That's the middle of the circle. K is the Y from the ordered pair. That's the middle of the circle. And that's your equation. You can write it on your little card so you can use it on your test. So let's try one. Let's take example number one. Example run. A, write an equation for the circle. Okay, I know that the center is at 4, -2. And I know the radius is 3. So at this point, all we have to do is plug in the information into our circle equation. So here I go. X minus h. Remember, h is the x coordinate from the center of the circle. So the x coordinate from the center of my circle is 4. Okay, I keep just filling parts into my equation. K comes next. That's the y coordinate from my center, which is right here. Okay, so I'm going to plug in a -2. As we all know, when I have minus and negative, what do? Minus and negative is really a plus, right? So I'm just going to make this a +2. And then it equals my radius squared. Well, what's my radius for this circle? It's a 3. 3 squared is 9. So that would be an equation of a circle with the center here and the radius here. And you would write this out, and that would be your answer. Not bad, right? Remember, the h is the x coordinate and the k is the y coordinate. Okay, all right, let's try 1b. Of course, as all of you know, this book likes to give you simple examples and then ramp it up when it comes time to do your actual assignment. Well, this example actually has one of those harder ones in it to show you how to do the ones in your assignment. So that's great. So example 1b. We know the circle passes through -2, 6. It's not the center, okay? This is not the center. It passes through this one. It's not the center, okay? And the center is at -6, 3. That's the center. So normally we use the center and the radius to do our equation, right? Don't you love it when I disappear and it's just my arm? Center and radius is what we normally use. This time we only have center. We have no radius. But I do know if this is the center, then my circle passes through this point. If it passes through a point, wouldn't the distance between those two be the radius? All right, I know you're excited because you heard me say distance, which means you use the distance formula. All right, so let's do our distance formula real quick, because if I find the distance between the center and the side of the circle, that will be my radius, right? Okay, so those of you that are remembering the distance formula, I don't think they have it written there at all, but they do it, but, oops, this is too small. x1 minus x2, -6 minus -2 is a +2 squared. I might be doing it a different order, but that's okay. Remember, as long as you're consistent, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I did x2 minus x1. So I have to do y2 minus y1 squared. Okay, let's do it. This would be what? -4 squared. This would be -3 squared. 25 square root. Radius is 5. So now we do have the center and we have the radius. Now we can plug it into our circle equation and be able, do they want us to write the equation of each circle? Yep, they do. Okay, so here we go. Let's do it. We're done with this point. That way you just use that to figure out the radius. So now let's do our equation. X minus my x, which is going to be a plus 6, right? Because it's a minus minus, squared plus y minus my y squared equals my radius, 5 squared. An equation for a circle. Done. Yay. Let's turn the page. Okay, graph each circle. All right, well, this is just a working backwards situation. Notice if they give you the equation of the circle, this is your center, and the square root of this is going to be your radius, and you'll be able to graph it. So let's look at B first. Example 2B on page 848, I think is a little easier, and then we'll go back to A. Okay, squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 9, I think is what it is. Okay, so let's get our center of our circle, and let's get our radius, and then we can graph it. Okay, so remember, these were minus signs here, right, in my equation. So the center of my circle is really going to be the opposite of this number, right, because these are minus signs in my equation. So as we're looking at example 2b, we have x plus 1. So my x is really going to be a minus 1, right, because that's to be opposite, because if I minus and negative, it becomes the plus that I had, okay? So your center point is actually going to be the opposite of the coordinates you see in your equation because of those minus signs, okay? So that's my x. My y is going to be, or this part of my center is going to be the opposite of negative 2, which is 2. And my radius is the square root of 9. And now I could plug negative 1, positive 2 into my graph. I could go 3 positions down, 3 positions over, 3 positions up, 3 positions this way. I do 4 radii so that I can, so it happens when you don't actually have a graph on the board. So I can have a good idea of where my circle is. I'm sorry, this is a disaster over here. I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, so I plot my center, and then I do the radius out 4 directions so I have a nice idea of where my circle is supposed to go. Okay, so take your equation. These are your x and y's of the center, but they're opposites. Square root the radius, square root this number to get the radius. Now, example 1a, we're going backwards. Notice for example 1a, it's missing this part of your equation and this part of your equation. Okay, that means the center of your circle is at 0, 0. So all you have to do is, you don't have to make a table of values. You can square root 25, and that will give you 5. And then you know your center is at 0, 0. So from 0, 0, you just go 5, radius of 5 in 4 directions, and you can draw your circle. Okay? That's it. 12.7 is done in less than 10 minutes. Awesome. Let's see if there's some exciting joke for you today. Question: what is a polar bear? Oh, this is not a good one. I'm sorry. I'm apologizing in advance. Question: what is a polar bear? Answer: a rectangle bear after a coordinate conversion. I'm sorry, I even spoke the words. I know, it's a disaster. We should just pretend it never happened. Okay, have fun with your circles.